Bienvenido a mi diario de Inglés Británico, un podcast para hispanohablantes que quieren entender inglés británico con confianza y progresar profesionalmente en el Reino Unido. Soy Shandon, coach nativo de inglés británico. Y sí, también hablo español. En cada episodio hablo en inglés británico real y conversacional, para que practiques tu comprensión auditiva y te acostumbres a cómo hablamos los nativos en la vida diaria. En este episodio voy a hablar de mi experiencia aprendiendo español, por qué decidí aprenderlo y cómo lo he aprendido, porque muchos me lo preguntan y porque puede ayudarte en tu propio proceso aprendiendo inglés. Te recomiendo que escuches este episodio más de una vez. No te preocupes si no entiendes todo. Cada vez que escuches vas a entender más. Vale, empecemos. Hello and welcome to episode 8 of this podcast to learn English. I hope you're well and I hope you're ready to improve your English. As you already know, I'm British and I'm English, but I also speak Spanish. In fact, I'm fluent in Spanish. This is something that helps me a lot to explain things to my students and to help them with my English. I only work with Spanish speakers, so this is a very important part of how I can help my students. Many people ask me, why did you learn Spanish? And how did you learn Spanish? So in this episode, I'm going to explain all of this. I've been speaking Spanish and learning Spanish for 15 years. It's a passion for me, and it's been a passion for me for half of my life. Actually, more than half of my life. So first of all, I want to take you back to my first experiences with Spanish. My experience with Spanish starts when I was younger. When I was younger, I went on 2 holidays to Spain. First of all, to Puerto Banús with my mum, my sister, and my nan. I think I was about 5 or 6 years old when I went to Puerto Banús. The second holiday was to Portaventura. That was with lots more of my family. So my mum, my sister, my uncle, my cousins, my nan, and other uncles as well. So quite a big group of us went to Portaventura. I think I was 8 years old when we went there, and that was a really great holiday as well. When I was younger, I also played for a Colombian football team here in London. The team still exists and is called Universal, or in English would be Universal. And so I learned some little bits of Spanish there as well. So through those 3 experiences, those 2 holidays, and playing for the Colombian football team here in London, I learned some bits of Spanish. Not really to speak very much, but to understand some simple bits of Spanish. So when did I actually start studying Spanish? I started studying Spanish when I was 13 at secondary school. The first 2 years of secondary school, I learned French and Latin, but finally, when I was 13, in the 3rd year of secondary school, I was able to start learning Spanish. Something that I had always wanted to learn. Maybe because of those early experiences with Spanish, but I don't know why I wanted to study it so much. However, when I started studying Spanish, I fell in love with the language straight away. It was my favorite subject for most of my time at school, especially the last 2 years of school. I loved learning new words and phrases, watching films, reading books, and just learning about Spanish language and Hispanic cultures as well. It was definitely a passion for me at school, and of course is still a passion for me today. Because I loved learning Spanish at school, I decided to study it at university. So I went to the University of Durham in the north of England and studied Spanish and economics. I spent 4 years at university, or uni as we commonly call it here. The first 2 years of my university degree, I didn't learn anything new in Spanish. In fact, I was very disappointed with my Spanish in those first 2 years. I wasn't able to spend much time speaking Spanish, and the lessons didn't teach us anything new. So I was very disappointed. However, luckily, in my 3rd year at university, that's when I became fluent. My 3rd year at university was my year abroad. As part of my year abroad, I spent 4 months living in Barcelona, 3 months living in Bogotá, in Colombia, and 2 months living in Peru, mostly in Lima, the capital, but also traveling around the country. Because of this, I was able to spend time living with Spanish speakers. I worked with Spanish speakers, and I lived a whole life in Spanish-speaking countries. This was an amazing experience, and by far is the best way to get fluent. Going to a country where the language is spoken and immersing yourself completely in the language and the culture. It's what I recommend for anyone learning English and all people learning English here in London. Don't just spend time with the Latin American or the Spanish speaking community. Try to engage with the culture, learn the language, speak to people in English, spend time with English culture, because that way you will learn a lot quicker and the learning will be much more enjoyable as well. After graduating from university, I actually decided to start teaching Spanish. I started my own company, teaching Spanish to English people. So people who wanted to travel to Latin America or Spain, and so wanted to speak Spanish with confidence. That's who I taught. I started a podcast and I created lots of videos and content on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and so on. So that's all in the past. But how do I keep up my Spanish now? How do I maintain my level of Spanish? How do I make sure I don't forget the words and phrases and everything that I've learned? Because, of course, I live in London, so it could be difficult to maintain and continue to speak Spanish. But that's not a problem for me. My girlfriend is Colombian, and so a lot of the time I speak Spanish with her. We speak a mix of English and Spanish. It depends on our mood. Also, there's a big Latin American community here in London. So whenever I go to the shops to get a buñuelo or a pan de bono, for example, I speak Spanish. Or if I go to a Peruvian restaurant and order a lomo saltado, of course, I get to speak Spanish as well. So that's my journey learning Spanish. It's been an extremely worthwhile journey. It's definitely been worth it. And it's been one of the greatest things I've done in my life. So now you know why and how I learned Spanish. I hope this story's been interesting I hope you've learned some new words and improved your understanding of British English as well. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Gracias por escuchar este episodio de mi diario de Inglés Británico. Ya has dedicado tiempo a tu aprendizaje hoy, y eso suma más de lo que crees. Poco a poco, tu inglés va a mejorar. Si vives en el Reino Unido y sientes que tu inglés te está frenando profesionalmente, te invito a hacer una evaluación de fluidez profesional gratuita conmigo. En esta sesión, analizo cómo hablas inglés hoy, identifico exactamente qué te está bloqueando y te explico qué necesitas trabajar para hablar con más claridad y confianza. No es una clase, es un diagnóstico claro y honesto de tu inglés hablado. Escríbeme por mensaje en Instagram para reservar tu evaluación. Dejo el enlace a mi cuenta en la descripción del episodio. Gracias y nos vemos pronto. Bye.